There is a particular kind of invisibility that exists inside hospitals for the people who move between departments without a permanent home in any of them: the float staff, the per diem workers, the nurses who appear where they're needed and disappear when the shift ends, known well enough to be assigned but not quite well enough to be remembered. Between assignments, it was that particular invisibility that had followed Dana Mercer through 6 years at Harwick Regional Medical Center, through rotations in every department the hospital contained, through hundreds of shifts where she had shown up, done the work, and left without a nameplate anywhere. She had not complained about this. She was not by nature a complainer. She was by nature a person who assessed situations, identified what was needed, and provided it, and who had learned, over a long time in a particular kind of work, that the doing of the thing mattered considerably more than the recognition attached to it. She had also learned, the hard way, in places she did not generally discuss at work, that visibility could be a liability. She had been float staff at Harwick Regional for 6 years. Before that, she had been something else, in places the hospital's HR file did not fully describe, and which she had never volunteered to any of the colleagues who referred to her, occasionally and without particular malice, as just the float nurse. On a Tuesday evening in early October, the thing she had been before arrived, unexpectedly and very loudly, through the emergency department bay doors, and the 6 years of careful invisibility ended in approximately 45 seconds. Eek! Dana Mercer was 41 years old. She had dark hair she kept pulled back during shifts, the kind of face that photographed as younger than it was, and the particular physical ease of someone whose body had been maintained not for appearance, but for function, over decades of work that had required both. She was in the emergency department, that evening covering a vacancy in the trauma bay. Not her usual assignment, but she went where she was needed, which was the fundamental job description of float staff and had, in an earlier chapter of her life, been the fundamental job description of something considerably more demanding. The regular trauma team that evening included a supervising physician named Dr. Arthur Pollock, who was competent and confident and who had developed, over his 12 years at Harwick Regional, a certain proprietary feeling about his department and the people in it that occasionally expressed itself as a mild condescension towards staff. He did not consider part of his regular team. He had noted, on Dana's arrival, that the department was expecting a quiet evening. He had noted, slightly less than diplomatically, that they probably wouldn't need the full float skill set tonight. Dana had noted that she was there regardless and had gone to check the supply cart, which needed restocking, and had begun restocking it, because the supply cart needed restocking whether Dr. Pollock acknowledged her skill set or not. Eek! The evening ceased being quiet at 7:43. The emergency bay doors opened with the particular urgency that bypassed all ordinary hospital entrance protocols, and 4 people entered, 3 in tactical gear, weapons secured but clearly present, and 1 on a stretcher in military uniform, his leg wrapped in field dressing, oxygen mask already in place, the particular careful speed of a transport that had moved, as fast as it safely could for some distance. Behind them, visible through the still-open bay doors, a helicopter was settling into the parking lot in a way that the hospital's helicopter had not been involved in, which was to say it had not touched down on the designated pad, and it was not a medical helicopter. The department went briefly, completely still, the particular stillness of a room encountering something outside its expected parameters. Then the tallest of the 3 in tactical gear, a man with gray at his temples and blood on his left sleeve that was not his own blood, looked directly at the assembled staff and said, in a voice that had clearly spent decades being heard in loud environments without needing to raise itself, "We need Beacon." Eek! The name landed in the department with the particular quality of a name that means nothing to most of the people present and everything to one of them. Dr. Pollock said, "I'm sorry," and who? The tactical operative. He had not introduced himself and showed no signs of planning to, said it again, "Beacon. We were told this hospital." Dana had been at the supply cart 14 feet away, her back to the room. She turned. The operative's eyes found her with the immediate, precise recognition of someone who has operated alongside another person in conditions that produce a different kind of knowing than professional acquaintance. "There you are," he said. "Eek!" She crossed the room. She did not run because running communicated panic, and panic was not useful. And she had learned this in the same place she had learned most things she knew about how to be useful under pressure. She looked at the man on the stretcher. She assessed, quickly, thoroughly, with the trained eye of someone who had done exactly this assessment, in considerably less equipped environments than a hospital emergency department, more times than she had ever been asked to document. She looked at the operative. "How long ago?" she said. 90 minutes field dressed. "He's been stable for 60. Lost before stabilization?" "Significant. His pressure dropped twice in transport." "Allergies?" "None on record." She looked at the leg, at the field dressing, at the monitor readings the transport team had running. "Dr. Pollock," she said without turning, "I need OR3 if it's available, and I need the vascular surgery resident on call right now. This is a significant arterial injury with field stabilization. The dressing is holding, but the underlying repair needs to happen in the next hour." Pollock looked at her. "Dana," he started. "Dr. Pollock." Her voice did not rise. It simply became more certain, in the way of someone who has stopped allowing the possibility of being interrupted. "Please call the OR and the vascular resident. I'll brief them when they arrive." Eek! Pollock made the calls. Later, he would be unable to fully articulate what had made him make them without further argument, except that something in her voice had communicated, clearly and without performance, that she was the person in this room who understood what was happening, and that arguing about it was going to cost time they did not have. In the 14 minutes before the vascular resident arrived, Dana did what she had been doing, in different rooms and different countries and under different names, for the better part of 2 decades before she had walked through Harwick Regional's employment office and asked for a float position because it offered the best combination of competence requirement and schedule, flexibility and professional anonymity she had been able to identify in the region. She managed the patient's care with the particular precise efficiency of someone who has delivered emergency medical treatment in conditions where every supply item had to be accounted for before you used it, and every decision had to be made without the option of escalating to someone else, because in the environments she had worked in, she had been the top of the escalation chain. The operative stood near the stretcher throughout. He did not interfere. He watched with the particular watchful stillness of someone who trusted what they were seeing and was simply ensuring it continued without interruption. "Eek, you've been here 6 years, he said at one point quietly. Not an accusation, just an observation. "I have," she said. "No one knew." "That was the point," she said. "Still," he said, 6 years as a float nurse. "Float nursing is useful work," she said. "It goes where it's needed. I've always found that appealing." He almost smiled. It was brief and slight, the specific near smile she recognized from environments where full expressions were a kind of luxury. "Beacon," he said. "Not anymore," she said. "Tonight you were." She looked at the patient, stable, breathing steadily, waiting for the OR. She looked at the monitor. She looked at the field dressing she had maintained while they waited. "Tonight the work needed doing," she said. That's all it ever was. Eek! Dr. Pollock, standing at the edge of the bay with the particular expression of a man whose understanding of a situation has been significantly revised, said nothing for a while. Then he said, "What's Beacon?" The operative looked at him. "A call sign," he said. "For what?" "For her," he said. Eek! The vascular resident arrived. Dana briefed her with the same calm, comprehensive precision she had applied to everything else in the preceding 14 minutes, transferring care with the particular completeness of someone who leaves nothing ambiguous for the next person. The patient went to OR3. The surgery lasted 3 hours and went well. The tactical team remained in the waiting area at the quiet request of the hospital's security department until the surgery concluded. The operative, whose name Dana had never used, in the same way he had not used hers, sat in one of the plastic waiting room chairs and looked at his hands. Dana came through at 11:20 to tell him the outcome. "He'll keep the leg," she said. "Full function is going to depend on recovery, but the surgical repair was clean." He nodded once. The nod of someone receiving information they had been managing significant uncertainty about for several hours. "Thank you," he said. "It was a clean injury, field dressed well, and transported carefully," she said. "The outcome was mostly your team's doing in the first 90 minutes. "It was your team's doing in the last 3 hours," he said. "The vascular resident is excellent," she said. "Tell whoever debriefs this that Harwick Regional's vascular team is genuinely good." "I'll tell them," he said. "And I'll tell them Beacon is still Beacon. You can tell them that Harwick Regional has excellent float nursing staff," she said. "That's accurate and doesn't require any of the rest of it." Dr. Pollock found her at the supply cart the following morning. The same supply cart restocked again, which it needed to be on a regular basis, which was the kind of necessary, unglamorous work that float staff did and that kept the department functional, and that did not appear on anyone's performance review because no one thought to include it. "I owe you an apology," he said. "You don't," she said. "I said you probably wouldn't need your full skill set last night." "You couldn't have known what was coming," she said. "I said probably wouldn't need the full float skill set," he said. As though float staff had a limited skill set worth noting. "That was my actual meaning, and I knew it when I said it, and you were gracious enough not to address it." She looked at him. "The patient is going to be okay," she said. "That's the only metric I'm working with." "I know," he said. "But I'd like to say it anyway. I underestimated you significantly." "A lot of people do," she said. "I've found it's generally useful." He looked at her for a moment, the particular look of someone reassembling. A picture with new information. "Beacon," he said. "What does it mean?" "Someone who shows where it's safe," she said. "Where to go when you're lost or in trouble." She turned back to the supply cart. "It was a long time ago. I'm a float nurse now." "You're a very good one," Pollock said. "Thank you," she said. The cart needed restocking. She restocked it. He watched for a moment and then went back to his department. And the morning shift began in the ordinary way of mornings, with the particular amnesia that busy places develop overnight, as though the previous evening had been filed away and the next day was starting clean. Dana worked the whole shift. She went where she was needed. She came back the following Tuesday for the next rotation. The supply cart was always restocked when she left. And perhaps that is the quiet truth tucked inside. A Tuesday evening like this one, that expertise, genuinely earned and genuinely held, does not require an audience to remain real. The people who are most capable are not always the ones standing at the front of the room. Sometimes they are at the supply cart, doing the necessary work, waiting for the moment when what they actually know becomes impossible to overlook. The call sign was earned in places most people in that department would never fully understand. But the work was the same work, showing up where needed, doing what the moment required, and leaving the room better than it was before. That has always been enough. It was always the point.